Welcome to Idiot Plot, a comedic podcast critiquing, discussing, and analyzing the media industry through reviews, debates, and historical deep dives.
Hello, welcome to the first episode of Idiot Plot. I'm David Yanish. Joining me today are my co-host Alex Ovadal.
Hello.
And Justin Neitzel.
What's up?
On today's episode, we're going to deep dive into the insane, stupid fever dream that is Wonder Woman 1984. We're talking about what went wrong and what does it mean for the future of superhero movies and the DCEU. So, guys, start out. Wonder Woman 1984, probably the biggest movie since Tenet, one of two big blockbusters to actually release during the pandemic. I mean, I was hyped for it just to get more movies, but I wasn't necessarily excited just for the movie itself, more that we're getting movies again. Justin, you and me kind of have seen all these, kind of stuck with them. What were your thoughts going into this? Were you excited for 1984, or were you a little bit more on the nervous side?
Kind of a little bit of both. I was mostly excited because, like you said, we're getting movies back, which is good. Skeptical considering I liked the first Wonder Woman. I didn't like it as much as everyone else did, apparently, but I was intrigued.
Now we've all seen Batman v Superman, right? Have we all seen that movie?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, so that's where she was introduced. And to me, personally, that movie killed all hype I had for the future of Wonder Woman in movies. They totally bungled introducing her into this world. And
most definitely.
Yeah, you're not a fan of emails?
No, emails that explain the entire plot of what they're going to do going forward. I love it when exposition is just tossed at me like that. In such a
well, that and they don't even know that she's Wonder Woman. She's just there, and then all of a sudden, oh, Wonder Woman.
Well, that's just it. She should not have been Wonder Woman in that movie. She should not have been Wonder Woman in that movie. She should have been Diana Prince that entire time. And then that post-credit scene is the one with the photo. You're like, oh, that's Wonder Woman. Like that's what it should be, not what they did.
Exactly.
And I think that was
kind of in the trailer.
Yeah, they showed like the third act, almost all of it in the trailer. But I think that was it felt like until now that the low point for the DC ones was Batman v Superman and Justice League, where they botched all the setup, and then they went back and started doing more individual movies, which is where I kind of started skipping. I didn't watch as many of them, but Aquaman was at least competent, Shazam was fun, and then Wonder Woman, which I didn't see until literally right before watching this, but I actually really liked. I'm not highest of us on that. I thought it was great.
And that's what was strange to me about Wonder Woman is I wasn't happy with Gal Gadot's performance in Batman v Superman. And then I saw her in Wonder Woman, and I was really impressed with it. She did a great job. I think part of that comes down to Patty Jenkins versus Zack Snyder, in that she actually knows how to direct actors, and that's, I think, one of his weak parts as a director. I mean, he's great visually, but the acting in his movies are so hit or miss.
She's definitely better in her own movies than she is on the ensemble movies.
Yeah, especially Justice League.
The more personal moments, which is what I think the first one did really well, because the action was but the character stuff which is lacking in a lot of modern, newer superhero stuff, was actually really good, and that's what drove it. And I feel like she's really good in those moments.
But the action of the first Wonder Woman, I think, is a precursor of what's to come with 1984, because you could see some issues with Patty Jenkins' direction in the first movie that were just kind of on the background. They weren't really that big of problems, but they kind of make you nervous because they are there. And then 1984 happens, and oh my goodness,
it's all there.
The third act of the first one is the preview for this.
It really is.
It is.
And Patty Jenkins claims that wasn't her initial plan for the third act. It was the studio, which basically wanted her to do Batman v Superman all over again, and that's really what it feels like, is two giant CGI things punching each other. And that brings us to Wonder Woman 1984. We'll probably go back and forth between this to the other one, because, spoiler alert, before we get into actual spoilers, the drop in quality between Wonder Woman, the first one, Wonder Woman 1984 is mind-boggling.
I mean, I was actually scared. I just watched it, the first one. I really enjoyed it. I'm like, oh, is this going to be one of those sequels that like ruins my whole view of it? But legitimately, within the first 5 minutes, it's so terrible, it's impossible to take seriously. Like, it's hard to it's like hard to describe how big the drop is. Like, you won't even believe it until you actually see it. It can't be described.
I can't believe it was the same people that made it. Different writers.
That shows.
But even like the direction is grossly incompetent. The acting is horrible.
It's way too long.
It's like 2.5 hours and has no reason being that long.
There's several things you can cut out of that movie.
The entire first hour is mostly filler. like
well, there's an entire hour gap of just nothing. I mean, it's painful.
Now, before we go
when the action finally shows up, you're like so underwhelmed.
Now, before we go forward with this discussion of Wonder Woman, we're not going to talk about spoilers right now, but we will eventually, and I will let you know when we get into that. But to start off, Wonder Woman 1984, as we've been saying, we all think it was pretty horrible. I don't think any of us were happy with what we got. And I think a lot of ways we were all shocked. I mean, I had a great time watching it,
but not ironically.
But the acting, Gal Gadot, it's like she got no direction. Chris Pine is acting like Patty Jenkins is pointing a handgun at his head off camera.
He's the one who knows what movie he's in. He knows exactly what's happening.
Pedro Pascal is having the time of his life.
Yeah, Pedro Pascal actually is probably the one performance of this movie that isn't horrible.
See, for me,
just not very good.
Yeah, for me it was in a vacuum. The performance isn't bad, but what makes it bad is everything around him. It's like he's playing it to 10, and everybody else is like at 5. Like everybody else is whispering and he's shouting, and it feels like they're not even in the same room. He's so like over the top. So I think it could have worked, but ultimately I thought it was also a poor performance just because it doesn't match anything else that's happening.
And it doesn't help that very clearly most of his scenes were improv. Especially any scene Kristen Wiig was in was improv. And the ones that she's in with him are painfully improv because you can tell Pedro Pascal just isn't that good at improving. And whatever point those scenes had goes away when those two are just making really weird jokes at each other. Like, and trying to flirt, but it's like really painful, awkward flirting. Like it wasn't in the script. And so they're trying to flirt while staying on topic.
2 separate pages of how they should do it.
Yeah, it was really bizarre to watch.
There's no chemistry, and I feel like, again, that could be a directing thing, because even for scenes that are mostly improv, you have to give them some direction. It's like, what should we do? Flirt. Okay.
But the chemistry,
you know.
To go off what you said, though, the chemistry thing is an issue that the whole movie has. Like, Chris Pine and Gal Gadot had amazing chemistry in the first movie, and that's all gone.
Yeah.
It all goes away in this one. Like, I don't... What happened to Patty Jenkins? Was she just not trying with this?
Well, it's that and the lack of creative control in the first one, where she really just kind of came in and directed it, and she did do well with the personal moments, but this is like with full creative power, no one to tell her how to do any of it, from story to direction to anything.
I mean, the action direction, which wasn't that great in the first one, that was one of my biggest complaints with it, especially that trench scene. Like, some of like the smaller fights were pretty good, but the larger ones were pretty terrible and seemed like lazy with over-reliance on CGI and motion, in slow motion. This one takes that to a whole other level. I mean, this makes 300 in that use of slow motion look tame. Compared, like, every fight scene has some sort of weird slow motion. There's slow-mo, just random story bits.
Oh yeah, I almost forgot about that.
And the slow motion combines with the weird physics and lack thereof that anything in this movie has.
Yeah, it throws physics right out the window.
Yeah, like, immediately. I mean, some things have the weight of like a paperweight, and then like other things are just impossible to move, and it varies so much. And I mean, even the like, just watch how people run. I mean, nobody even runs like a person. When the direction is so bad that like even the way people run is wrong and feels like almost comedic. Like the issues you have are unbelievable.
There's a great moment in the movie. This isn't a spoiler. It just kind of happens. But where Wonder Woman is like starting out really slow and she speeds up, but like the way she runs doesn't change as she gets faster. Her body just moves faster. So she's just like transcending time. Like she's making strides that shouldn't be taking her 60 miles an hour, but they are.
It's like she's standing on a green screen and they're like, okay, move the screen really fast behind her.
Yeah, that's what I saw when watching it too. Like they're just moving the green screen.
But actors that aren't in green screen run like they're in front of green screen. The Kristen Wiig's jogging, like did no one tell her how people jog? Like,
so in this scene, I want you to jog like you can't jog.
I want you to jog like someone has a gun pointed at your back, and the metal is going right into your spine. And you want to
do serpentine
because that's what's happening.
And I mean, just if you want to have fun, just watch the extras. Watch how the extras run in scenes, and you'll have a blast.
But again, that was an issue the first movie had. Like, I love in the alleyway fight in the first movie when she's fighting all those random dudes in some alley. There's all the guys in the background waiting their turn to fight her, and they're just like doing nothing until it's their turn to fight.
That's a problem in all kinds of movies, though. It's like, oh, we're going to gang up, but we're going to attack one by one.
But you would think in these action movies that they would have some sort of plan for that, and they never do, and it's really frustrating. Like, especially with this one, because Patty Jenkins clearly didn't learn anything from the first movie, and instead doubled down on the stuff that, in my opinion, did not work. Especially with the casting, too. Well, I like Pedro Pascal, and I do like Kristen Wiig in other movies. She should not be in this movie. She never should have been cast in this movie.
Well, she could have been cast, just not as Cheetah.
Like, true. She's a very bad Cheetah. She's very unbelievable. And what sucks is they have. I think there's two actresses that they could have picked to play Cheetah that I think would have been perfect. And you guys can fight me on this. Vanessa Kirby is one because she's done action movies before, and I think can play both parts of the character good. But the other is an actress who's already in the movie, and that's Robin Wright.
Yeah, but instead she's just showed up to some side role for 5 minutes in both movies. Which
is a big issue with any sort of superhero big budget movie now, is actors cast in really nonsense, worthless roles. Like Walton Goggins and Ant-Man and the Wasp. Robin Wright in Wonder Woman is a big one of that. Of just these big-name actors that should have big, meaty roles that are giving these stupid side roles just for the royalties or because their kid wanted them to do the movie. But I think it should have been... I mean, they had to rewrite the role for Robin Wright. I think Vanessa Kirby probably could have played it as written. But Kristen Wiig has no idea what she's doing.
And again, a lot of it's a direction issue, too. Like, just having her play someone awkward, but... Again, it's so over-the-top awkward that, like, no human being acts like that. So it's, again, she's one of the characters, too, like Pedro Pascal, that's, like, hammed up to 11. And then you have, like, Gal Gadot and Chris Pine that are, like, barely conscious.
Now, up to this point, we've been kind of tiptoeing around big story beats. So I'm going to say we move into spoiler talk now, because there is... no way you can talk about this movie in depth and not bring up almost everything that happens in it. Almost every part of the plot, every scene, every frame has something horrible in it that needs to be talked about.
Yeah, it's one of the only movies that I've ever seen where I can't think of a redeeming quality. And what's bad? Everything. Everything is bad.
So with that,
every shot.
So with that, we're going to talk about the story. So if you haven't seen the movie, to introduce the story, do you remember Dragon Tales? that
I
show?
do.
That with the kids with the dragons.
Yes.
Okay, there's so many dragon shows as a kid. I'm like, I think it's
Just
this.
the animated one with the dino with wings, right?
Yep. And do you remember how the show kind of what the plot is?
No.
So in order to go to the dragon world, these two kids, they need to pick up a magic rock. And they say, I wish with all my heart to fly with dragons and a land apart. That is the plot of Wonder Woman 1984 in a nutshell.
Wow, it really is.
is they find this magic wishing rock that Pedro Pascal's character may or may not have found. That part was really unclear to me.
No,
I think he had been looking
it was
for
in that. It was in that store in the mall where the people were stealing it, the artifacts or whatever, and then Pedro Pascal stole it from Kristen Wiig's character.
Yeah, it was really strange, kind of hard to follow. But there's a magic wish rock that gives people the powers to make wishes while taking their, was it the thing they love most? It was super vague and it didn't really make any sense.
Yeah, I don't even think it's what they love most. It's just something random.
Their best quality or something. I thought it was.
And that really, in a nutshell, is what happens in the movie when it drives this plot. Is people making wishes, and it starts out with a opening sequence of Diana back on Themyscira in this American Ninja Warrior type gladiator game that really has nothing to do with the plot at all.
You honestly did not need this opening
right,
at all.
At the end of it, they just make some point about, you can't lie to people. You have to pursue truth and lies, which has nothing to do with the theme of the movie. But it's because there is no theme. But they try and make it one at the beginning and end, but it has nothing to do with anything that happens.
The only thing that happens in the beginning that really comes back is I'm talking about the warrior or whatever for the armor, and that's the only thing that comes back. And you didn't need it.
Yeah, because
she later explains it in the movie to Steve Trevor.
Yeah, she explains the reason why that armor exists, which is, she said it's because some great warrior wore it, when in reality it's because that thing could sell toys. And they could put it on posters.
She did not need this armor it was pointless.
It
was just there to change it up.
Prevents her from being electrocuted in the water when she's also electrocuting someone else in the water.
We talk more about the armor when we get to that part of the story.
The beginning contradicts the first movie in the first 3 minutes. She's not even allowed to pretend to be mimicking the motions of the Warriors training in the first one, and she's in Warrior Olympics and shit in 3 minutes of the movie and beating full-grown warrior adults at Olympics.
Well, that was the moment when the movie started, when I was watching it. The moment I saw they had the shot where it's all of them lining up and it keeps pulling back. I'm like, oh no. And the moment I see this 8-year-old girl line up with all these grown adult women, oh no, that's what they're gonna do. That's how they're gonna open it. And we get is this messy, jumbled up, horribly directed action sequence, which is this heavy reliance on CGI and strings that, again, serves no purpose other than to teach a message that has nothing to do with the plot of the movie.
Well, also, how is it? She stops her from winning at the end because she says she cheated. But how is it cheating if she was resourceful enough that she fell off her horse to get back into the race?
Because she messed the checkpoint, Justin. Haven't you played any racing game that involves going through hoops? If you miss the hoop,
you have to circle back around, yeah. And also, why is this? She slides down this Noah's Ark water park slide.
That's just there.
It takes her to the front.
Why is that there?
Because it's convenient. It makes the plot go.
It doesn't make any sense, which it really sets the stage for everything else.
You could kind of say that the whole message about cheating comes back with the whole wishes is getting ahead through cheating, but that's so loose. It's such a loose interpretation of it.
Here I thought it was about her fighting Cheetah.
Boo!
Thank you. I deserve to be booed for that.
But then it flashes forward to the 80s.
Action scene. It is pure terrible art.
It flashes forward to the 80s where it's Wonder Woman trying to be almost like Batman in a way, where she's like helping people without being seen, and it looks really bad.
How do you miss someone dressed like that?
And they go to a shopping mall because, get it, the 80s had shopping malls.
Which is as 80s as it gets in the whole movie.
They had shopping malls, people wearing gaudy clothes. And that scene in the shopping mall is when the wheels really start to come off this train. Like, that is when you start to realize, oh my goodness.
The train's in the ravine after that.
What have I done?
It's the rails and it's in the water.
I mean, the physics of it, I can't even really explain in words. But she's like whipping people around, and they're flying around, and they almost like toss this kid off the side of a mall, like embankment.
I know, that's how when I'm trying to take a hostage at gunpoint so people don't shoot me, I hold the kid over the rail
ledge. And
I mean, like the way people are yelling and acting is so hilariously over the top.
A ski later.
I multiple times. It was so funny. I couldn't stop laughing. And I mean, the extra running up the escalator, again, even the way people run in this movie is just hysterical. It's a total disaster.
And then that action scene ends, and that is the last action scene in the film for a solid hour. In a superhero action movie, that's the
full hour. Like, almost exactly on the dot, a full hour. Because I remember pausing. I'm like, how long has it been since the last one when I realized the next one was coming up, and it was about a full hour.
And what we get for the next hour is really bad exposition and really bad plot buildup.
And you can barely even call it a plot. I mean, once you realize what the plot is going to be, it's also hysterical. The whole magic wish rock. And she like sees this rock and says, oh, it says it can grant wishes. Oh, ha ha, I wish. You're like, oh no. Please, God, no.
I wish I had another cup of coffee. Ha ha ha.
Oh, there's the coffee.
There's my coffee. Oh no. Like, it's so on the nose. Honestly, it's so insulting because it treats the audience like they're that stupid.
Yeah, like, I'm not going to know. Like, I'm supposed to be surprised when Chris Pine shows up, when after that coffee thing she's like, oh, I know what I would wish for, and then, like, he shows up later. Like, I'm supposed to be surprised by that? Of course I know that's what it is.
This scene also introduces us to Kristen Wiig as Barbara Ann Minerva, who eventually becomes Cheetah. And such a weird introduction, because it's like the intro to every high school movie ever, where like the nerdy girl comes in and she drops all of her stuff.
See if they're nerd.
It's every supervillain in a superhero movie. It's like, oh, they were nerdy in the beginning, and all of a sudden something happens, and now they're popular.
They're missing the part where Tony Stark comes in and cuts them off at line at Costco, and they must swear vengeance upon the Stark family.
Order at
Tony Stark didn't hit on me at this one party because he didn't think I was attractive enough. But honestly, I mean, and she's like the nerd and everything, but then everyone's an asshole to her there, even the other women. It's
at the Smithsonian, everyone at the Smithsonian is mean to like the nerd.
They're all nerds.
They're at the Smithsonian.
This is like the world's Avengers of nerds. Like, they're not going to make fun of her for being a nerd.
They're at the Smithsonian in the gemology and geology department. Who do they think these people are? Like, it's just stupid. But remember, 80s movies had nerds being bullied.
Right. Oh, yeah, right. So we can fall back on the lazy stereotypes because cheesy 80s, because that's totally what 80s movies were like. Right?
That is an argument I have heard about this movie from almost everyone that likes it, is that, well, it's campy, but it's supposed to be campy because the 80s were campy. And that's such a lame excuse to justify was just lazy bullcrap writing and horrible direction. If that's what they were going for, that's fine. But they failed epically.
Especially considering the whole movie isn't like that.
It's the thing of tone. Like, when I think of a cheesy movie that's also fun, I think of something like Face Off.
Yep, Face Off. But that knows what it is. This also tries to be, like, serious.
It tries to be Watchmen.
Yeah, and the campiness isn't, like... Most of the campiness, there are, like, a few moments that are intentional, but most of it is entirely unintentional and hilarious. Like, when she winks at that kid during the mall fight scene, like, that's supposed to be campy. the RPG yeet is not supposed to be campy.
Hold up on that. We're not there yet. We have to build up to that because that deserves to be talked about.
I'm giving a tease here. Foreshadowing, right?
Yep.
Something. This movie knows
again,
nothing.
back to Minerva, whatever. It's like, oh, and she's a nerd because she can't walk in high heels. Is that really what her standards are?
Yeah, the questionable morals of this movie are also something interesting, which I feel like people bring up for all kinds of blockbusters and stuff, and usually it isn't true, but like there's so much in this movie like that she's a failure because she can't walk in high heels, and then obviously the Wonder Woman Chris Pine thing,
which we're just about at. 'Cause that's about where we are in the story. Is Barbara and Minerva. So she is a nerd. Diana helps her from being assaulted on the street. So she wishes that she could be like Diana. Whereas Diana all of a sudden is just found at this party. So after Barbara and Minerva becomes like hot just because of the magic wish rock, Diana is approached by this random dude who turns out to be Steve Trevor possessing this guy.
and they bone for like a whole day.
Yeah, and which again, questionable morals. There you go.
Yeah, that one is just beyond questionable. I mean, like, and unbelievable that did no one think of this? Did no one think, hey, maybe we shouldn't make Wonder Woman a rapist?
I
mean, eventually that other guy's gonna come back.
Yeah, I think she is.
This is also a horrifying moment at the end to jump to that quick when she just like tongue in cheek or like happily ever after notices the guy whose body Steve Trevor was in, and it's just like, oh haha, there's that guy. We're having a casual conversation, like
it's weird
because he has no idea.
And Steve Trevor's return also brings up one of the other parts of the 80s section of this movie, which is fashion montages, where there are several fashion montages in this movie that only exist to show off 80s fashion and remind people that this movie does in fact take place in the 80s.
You need that reminder because there's nothing else 80s in the entire rest of it, so you need these random forced reminders that, hey, he has a fanny pack and cargo parachute pants. This is the 80s.
I don't think a single 80s song plays in this movie.
No.
I think there might be. Is there one near the beginning? Maybe, but that's it.
Maybe in the mall, but
like it's not really
on
used
and off real quick.
It's not used that well, if really at all.
And yeah, there's nothing else. And again, why is this story in the 80s too? Besides the fact that you can barely even tell it's 80s, which says enough, but there's no actual reason for it to be in the 80s.
Continuing this story, then we then have Maxwell Lord, who gets the rock from Kristen Wiig and wishes to become the rock itself and to have its powers. It's called the Dreamstone.
Turn into like the Thing.
I was hoping he'd turn into Dwayne Rock Johnson, and all of a sudden he'd be in the movie.
You know what?
It's like those genies that take your wish
movie.
literally and then give you exactly what you asked, but you didn't ask for like a hot omelet on a plate or something.
Yeah, the movie does this too. The movie tries to do this, like, oh, you wished like exactly for this. Like, I wish you were dead, and then they die. Like, why doesn't he literally turn into a rock?
Well, he basically then has genie powers, but people have to hold on to him and then wish, and he just grants it. But then, since the whole purpose of this wish rock is it's like a monkey's paw, so Diana wishes for Steve Trevor to come back, and spoiler alert, begins to lose her powers in return. But Maxwell Lord then uses his new rock powers to pick and choose what they lose.
And of course, everyone, including powerful leaders who he asks what they wish for, this random person they just met, they all trust instantly because the loose plot that barely exists needs to keep moving.
And I'm going to make you say, I wish I had this.
So Maxwell Lord basically then starts to strong arm himself into places of power, which to kind of go in the comic book nerd category, I love the Maxwell Lord character. I do not love what they did with the Maxwell Lord character. he's like, I mean, his plot takes in real time in the comics like 20 years to come to fruition.
This takes like a week.
Less than that, probably.
This takes like 20 hours. And it's like a couple days.
Like, he's just walking his way through.
World's leaders to grant him wishes.
And it eventually brings our characters to Egypt, where before they go there, talk about the stupid parts of this movie, Wonder Woman and Steve Trevor break into the Smithsonian and steal a jet, which Steve Trevor, who is this pilot from...
Like in 1918.
now also knows how to fly a jet with resistance to cheese and all that stuff. And they begin flying this jet around. Of course, the government tries to stop him. So, to invent a new power and new reference, Diana then turns the plane invisible magically.
Which makes it apparently invisible to radar when that's not how radar works. And 5-year-old could tell you that, but apparently not the writers of this movie.
I mean, the plane's still there, and it's like buzzing buildings. It's like flying through fireworks and stuff.
You can hear it.
Yeah, you know it's there.
Also, that flying through fireworks. All of a sudden, it's the 4th of July, but we've been seeing people wearing jumpsuits all movie long. It's like, it's like 80, 90 degrees there, right?
They're in Washington, D.C. I've been in Washington, D.C. in July. It's hot. It is not cold. It is hot. And I guess a lot of our points probably sound like nitpicks. And here's the thing. They're not nitpicks when literally it happened once every 15 seconds.
Yeah, it's like, again, that's why it's so hard to discuss it without spoilers, because it's like you can poke holes in every single scene, every single moment. So it's like, where do you begin? Because it has the larger problems, and it's also like legitimately every single little thing is terrible. And there's rarely been anything quite like it.
And then, so...
I mean, you talked about the inventing powers thing. I mean, she flies. She just... At one point, she just flies. Because apparently Steve Trevor inspired her to know how to fly, and so she just glides through the sky like Superman.
But she knows how to...
Justice League.
She knows how to redistribute air. So by that logic, any of us could fly.
Yeah.
If we just knew how to balance air. But anyway, so they go to Egypt, where we get probably the greatest scene of the movie. I kind of jump ahead, which is this car chase where Maxwell Lord basically just wishes people, he has like some security detail to have like a convoy scene.
Dude, security he steals.
And we get this amazing action scene, this truly glorious action scene of Wonder Woman pushing like a Humvee at 60 miles an hour by just walking normally. Whereas, I mean, I love action scenes in this movie because it's always Wonder Woman fighting like 30 dudes by herself, and then Chris Pine in the background fighting like one dude.
And there's always some horrible CGI and like weird physics and all that shit. And then, of course, the really perhaps the greatest moment of the movie.
It is the greatest moment when Steve Trevor launches the RPG.
Yeah, he launches the RPG in the sky so she could use her lasso and yeet herself using an RPG forward, which is one of the funniest things I've ever seen, I think.
She directs it.
Kids playing in the road that don't hear a freaking convoy coming.
Yeah, a gun battle in the distance. They don't hear it.
Yeah, in the middle of an empty road.
What makes the RPG scene amazing is that she like directs the RPG into the direction where she wants to go and just flies. No change in velocity. It just carries her. Like, and then she just grabs the kids with it. But then, she's losing her powers, so she slips up and fails.
Yeah, and like, ow, I have a cut on my arm from a machine gun. I must be losing my powers.
Which brings us into the battle at Washington, D.C. to kind of jump ahead. They go to Washington, D.C., where Maxwell Lord is confronting who's probably supposed to be Ronald Reagan, but he looks more like microwaved Ronald Reagan leftovers.
It was definitely trying to be Reagan, I think, and it was like, oh, I wish for more nukes, and then they just magically appear. Because that makes sense. Like, oh, this random guy is in the Oval Office. He says I can get anything I want. I want nukes.
Yeah, those just magically appear while Steve Trevor just happens to embody someone else's body. It's like, why couldn't he just appear?
Yeah, that is weird.
The Cheetah subplot, which barely had anything to do with the movie, finally comes back because she just decides that she's going to help Maxwell Lord. This whole time, she's been going on random adventures and beating people
Fighting
up.
random dudes and lifting weights. And then just starts fighting. But
Every single person on the street tries to like hit on her, and then she beats them up and lifts weights.
And that's when the film becomes great, because I hate such a superhero trope. Hey, we have to get rid of the superhero's powers, therefore the villain has a chance of beating them in a fight.
Well, the problem is you have like an MCU thing going on here where it's same versus same, essentially.
Yep.
We're not so different, you and I.
And they just start punching. And Kristen Wiig's like trying to be like intimidating, but
she's not.
But she's given like the same expression that she's given for like the entire movie, except this time she's just wearing makeup. That's essentially what the difference is. And she's doing like Street Fighter moves and stuff. Like, it's pretty gloriously stupid. And then we get into the third act where Cheetah just joins Maxwell Lord for no reason, and
I want to become an apex predator. All right, you're a kid now.
Every piece of dialogue in this movie is so incredibly cringy because of moments like that.
And one of the best examples is right before that with the Wonder Woman, where she's like, "What did it take from you?" She asks. Oh, we can leave the scene there. Nope. It took your warmth, your humanity. Like, are you reading this from, like, cue cards right now?
Gal Gadot, blink twice if you're in danger.
You just asked. You know, you're explaining to me everything. Like I'm, a toddler.
It also doesn't explain why she gets turned into a cheetah, considering she only gets one wish.
It does. I'm about to get to that. Because that is one of my least favorite parts of this movie that drove me insane watching it. And so Maxwell Lord, he goes on TV through like this magic like broadcast system the U.S. government just happens to have, this new satellite array that can broadcast throughout the world. And Maxwell Lord goes on this and like somehow like puts himself through satellite so that way people don't have to touch him. They can just wish and he gets there. Because through this whole time he's been kind of like falling apart every time he has a wish, which is part of his comic book thing. Like the Bloody Nose, that's what he's known for in the comics. Okay. And so eventually he gets there and all these wishes make himself like more alive again. But then he's like, I give your life force to her, like your strength to her, and gives it to Kristen Wiig. What I fail to understand is how does that turn her into a cat?
At what life force threshold must you become a cat to get more?
Did some cat magically like make a wish by accident, like, and all of a sudden he that's who he grabbed?
Somehow the cat understood him and was like, "I want a wish,"
and then boom, it's a real boy now.
Which brings us to the epic fight between
the cat. The cat wanted tuna, so it took away its appearance of a cat and it turned into a human the size of a cat.
That's how we got cats. But like the fact that everybody just instantly accepts this TV man telling them to wish for anything, and everybody just hog wild and starts like wishing for people to die, and like there's chaos in the streets in like 10 minutes.
I wish I had all the money in the world.
I don't really think they accept it because there was the one chick was like, she kind of was like, yeah, right. I wish I was famous, and also she was.
It's so. Yeah. I wish my country had nukes.
Offhand, that guy who's like, "I wish you were dead," and he just drops over.
I wish you were deported.
I wish I would be deported. This movie, at every level, because now we're at the part, which in the trailers, which is Wonder Woman fighting Cheetah, which is such a where she finally dons the armor we mentioned earlier, that only exists to sell toys.
And we get the other overused superhero line: "What have you done?
What have you become?"
And in Wonder Woman, of course, donning the armor from Kingdom Come, which should have been a movie instead of this, that really serves no purpose. Like, they told the legend of it, but like she doesn't earn it, like Justin said earlier. She's just wearing it.
She just happened to stumble upon it during her archaeology.
And of course, this fight is at night to hide the fact that the CGI on Cheetah is horrible and makes her look like Morbius.
It's worse than Cats.
I wouldn't say it's worse than Cats, because Cats gave me nightmares. But
this just made me laugh.
She looks like Morbius. She has like the weird like fangs and stuff, and they're fighting, and it's very obvious when it's not Kristen Wiig, when it's the CGI cat, and they're fighting, and they fight underwater, and Wonder Woman electrocutes her.
Even though
she doesn't get electrocuted.
and then Wonder Woman then confronts Maxwell Lord.
Kristen Wiig lives, too.
Yeah, Kristen Wiig lives, that's right. Well, because she's an apex predator, Alex. She's unlike anybody else.
Power grid to electrocute the water.
And then left it drowned.
Because Wonder Woman's less likely the person.
Don't kill unless they're random people in a security detail, then they can die.
Yeah, that's so weird. No killing.
Throws them from an 80-mile-an-hour car.
Into a chair. Throws the security guards into a chair. He's just fine. Like I've hurt my tailbone sitting on a chair too hard. That guy's probably in some pain. It's like, nope, he sits there.
Or crippled.
And then, so Wonder Woman confronts Maxwell Lord. Because again, inventing powers, her lasso now doesn't just tell people to tell the truth, it forces them to see the truth. And she hooks up her lasso. Because remember, we kind of talked about this earlier, but if you renounce your wish, then it goes away and you get what you lost back.
So stupid.
Which is really dumb and not how genies work.
I'm kind of still wondering how the guy repented his wish of the cup of coffee.
He probably didn't.
Or is he screwed?
Because he probably didn't know what happened. But Wonder Woman then compels the whole world to see the reality. Where we get probably the second best scene in the movie, where it's revealed that Maxwell Lord, part of his villain backstory, is that he peed the bed as a little kid.
Got yelled at.
And it focuses on that.
You legitimately can't make this stuff up. He's a bad guy because he wet the bed and got yelled at.
Because it focuses on it for like a solid minute.
This is the dramatic climax of the movie, and one of the most important images it shows you is him wetting the bed. Like, I mean, if that doesn't sum up the movie, I don't know what does.
And then Maxwell Lord remembers...
to be more compelled, at least have his dad abusing him or something.
And then Maxwell Lord remembers he has a kid, and then leaves.
Who's just in this movie randomly, and then doesn't even want his kid around half the time, and then all of a sudden at the end he's like, oh, I miss my boy.
I renounce my wish. And then, like, again, horribly runs off camera.
And Wonder Woman saves the world with a Twitter thread. Some Tumblr blog post about lies and truth, and everybody's like, oh, now I don't want what I wanted anymore. Thank you for telling me that. As she looks straight into the camera, like breaking the fourth wall.
Like she's speaking to us. In our crazy times of 2020, we need Wonder Woman.
To tell us not to wish for things, because that's bad.
Also, I don't want to rip on the kid actor because he's a kid, but the guy who plays Master Lord's kid, can you have him do something? He just stands there just with this blank expression on his face.
He's bored. He's like, why am I here?
Me too, kid.
Why is he here? We don't know why he's here.
Set to just stand here.
You can always, I think it's always most obvious when the direction is bad in kid actors, because it feels like they're looking around for someone to tell them what to do. And that's how I felt watching him. Like, he's kind of looking around set, like, adults, someone tell me what to do, please.
Is this how adults acted in the 80s?
Yeah, we can just excuse that. Like, oh, it's bad 80s acting, because that's definitely how 80s films were, right?
So that is the plot of the movie. Going kind of there. I mean, Wonder Woman. She eventually, to end the movie, meets up with the guy who Steve Trevor possessed, and they have a conversation. And there's two scenes in the movie that were shot in IMAX film: the opening and the very end, not the climax.
Random conversation scene is shot in IMAX.
It's like really, okay. It's really strange. Pat Jenkins probably was like, "We're gonna bookend the film," but it really just doesn't make any sense.
parallels.
Maybe she just wanted to use the IMAX camera.
And then we get another really interesting scene, which is Linda Carter in the mid-credits sequence revealed that she was the fabled hero that wore the armor. Because we have to just shove that in there. We have to shove the past in there.
Just for brownie points, like, oh, this movie was terrible, but hey, Linda Carter in the credits, right, guys?
Remember Linda Carter? Remember Wonder Woman?
Remember when Wonder Woman was good? Yeah.
And people who like the movie, again, have tried to say it's a homage to that. It's a homage to lifestyle. But literally, part of the movie becomes nuclear warfare. The climax is like the U.S. and Russia are about to go toe-to-toe. Like, it reminded me of Watchmen. But it was Watchmen in the style and tone of Batman 66. And you don't do that. You don't. If the movie was just trying to be fun, I'd forgive it. But it's not. That end speech by Wonder Woman, it's trying to lecture you. It's trying to have the audience think of parallels between this and the situation we are currently at, which I don't care. I'm watching a Wonder Woman movie. I want escapism. I want fun. And you can't even give me that.
Well, and that's the thing. If it's trying to say something, it completely fails at that. It doesn't do either thing successfully.
It's like everyone...
I mean, you can have strong themes in a comic movie. I mean, obviously The Dark Knight is one everybody points to, but that's not really the tone Wonder Woman has. But like something like the Sam Raimi Spider-Man has strong themes and everything, but like it's not, trying to make some like message about our times like this seems to be trying to do, but completely fails at, so it's hard to tell.
I get a sense from watching this movie that everyone except Patty Jenkins knew what was happening. I mean, Gal Gadot, I think, was kind of bought into it too, but I mean, Hans Zimmer's score phones it in hard. I mean,
it's a lot of retread.
Yeah, he uses music from other movies, from non-DC movies. The scene where Wonder Woman learns to fly is music from like the X-Men Days of Future Past trailer music.
Like, I don't know if they're phoning it in. I guess I will too. Except that's the weird thing. You think about some other recent failed blockbuster efforts like Rise of Skywalker, that felt completely phoned in on every level. This is bad on a different level because they're at least Patty Jenkins and some others are legitimately trying, and it's just that bad.
And Patty Jenkins, the Guardian had a really good article on this, basically saying, because in a lot of these movies, the word we always hear is studio interference. Studio interference. They meddle with the plot, they meddle with certain parts, with the casting. That was not the case at any level with this movie. Patty Jenkins got to do exactly what she wanted. And this is what happened.
Complete and full power after the first one. Because the first one was written, set, and she came in and directed basically the studio's film. It was, we have the script, we've got everything set up, we have a cast, here you go. And she negotiated full power for this one. The writer wasn't the same writer. She got story power and was one of the, I believe 2 writers on this. 3. There were 2 other writers.
The other writers were Jeff Johns and Dave Callum. Jeff Johns wrote this? Jeff Johns knew better than that.
Yeah, I mean, how involved was he is the question. I mean, it was the same thing with like Aquaman. I believe he had story credit.
Well, that's the other thing is, did he just give notes? And that was it, or?
Well, he has both story and screenplay credit. He has both.
But I mean, that Patty Jenkins also has both. I feel like certainly she had significant power for this.
Oh, she probably wrote it herself and had someone else just write down her words.
Yeah, or Jeff Johns did a pass at it.
And the writing is so bad.
Which is, it's crazy that, I mean, it's this bad. Not that it's bad, but, like, it's legitimately one of the worst blockbusters I've ever seen. And it's shocking.
It is currently sitting at 5.5 on IMDb.
Inflated.
Which is inflated. and infamously, talking about inflated scores, the Rotten Tomatoes score for this movie, infamously, was certified fresh, and then went down to rotten after release very slowly, which I don't
have
think ever
commercials
happened before.
I was gonna say, has that ever happened?
I don't believe it has.
No, but they didn't let too many people watch it prior to them releasing it.
Well, and a lot of the big name critics thought very highly of it, or at least didn't hate it like I do. And I love DC. This movie was terrible. Like don't get me wrong. Like I laughed, I had a good time, but ironically.
Right. Should you watch it? Yes. Is it good? No, not on any level. It's ironically hilarious.
I mean, definitely watch it, but know what you're getting into. Absolutely know what is happening.
And wonder legit. My main thought for this, and what like the way I couldn't stop describing it, is that I honestly can't believe it exists.
And
on so many levels, I don't understand how this thing was made.
And reviewing the movie too, like we kind of went scene by scene. I don't generally like doing that, but with this movie you have to, because there's so many layers to everything. Like the making up new powers. She can make a plan invisible. She can make people see the truth.
Even with her lasso, it seems like that thing's becoming OP.
Yeah. Oh, how do we end this scene? How does she get out of this conflict? We have the lasso.
Every fight looks like Zack Snyder directed a Black Widow movie, because it's weird, like acrobatic moves where she's sliding across the entire floor in slow-mo. Enough of the slow-mo, DC. Stop with the slow-mo. We don't need more slow-mo.
It's not good.
It looks terrible.
I wasn't even a fan of it in the first movie.
No, it ruined the first movie. Which is how you know it was Patty Jenkins' decision to do it in the first movie, because it's in this one too. I mean, I love DC, and I haven't been happy with their movies, but I thought after Wonder Woman and Aquaman, I mean, Aquaman is just gloriously stupid, and I love every minute of it.
It's like, yeah, to me that's like one of the most average superhero movies, but they had started to make, like, yeah, I'm not a fan of the cinematic universe ones really, but they had started to make competent movies, and ones like Shazam that were really fun, and obviously I really liked the first Wonder Woman, so it seemed like they were on the right track, like they'd stabilized the DC universe.
And now here we are. Like, I've lost faith, I've lost hope. Like, I am now excited for the Snyder Cut. Like, unironically excited for the Snyder Cut. It's probably going to be terrible, but I need something. And of course, Aquaman 2, Shazam 2 is coming out, Black Adam's coming out, but like, I have no hope for the shared universe movies. Matt Reeves' Batman looks sick.
That I'm looking forward to.
Thank God that is isolated from all of this. And no one does that anymore. They're actually letting him just make a film.
Oh, don't worry. Don't worry.
Batman.
I guarantee you it'll be a separate universe. It'll be a Batverse. There will be spin-off movies.
That's what they need to do, because this inevitably happens with these universe ones where the quality dips and then they just keep going and going and going. And it's like, well, now there's still like 6 movies planned, but now everybody's lost faith in them, but it's too late. They're already in the works.
I mean that happened with DCEU. They had plans for like 3 Justice League movies, Cyborg movie, Flash movie. The Flash movie is coming out, but it's not the same movie. The Cyborg movie is probably not going to happen, at least not with Ray Fisher, because he had the balls to say the truth and actually speak out.
I think they just announced yesterday that he's out.
The Flash movie.
Yeah, he's out for good because he had the balls to speak up and address injustice on set by Joss Whedon.
Yeah.
But oh no, we can't have that. We can't have accountability on a movie set.
Well, not from Joss Whedon, anyways.
Yeah, that's for sure.
It just
He
sucks.
gets so many passes for making the Avengers movies, but they're not that great.
And DC let him do Justice League, which the fact that he directed Wonder Woman that bad in that movie is pretty bad, because he's usually good with actors, but they must all just hated him, and that's why Wonder Woman's not good in that movie.
Well, I think even who plays Aquaman was backing up Ray Fisher's comments.
Everyone was.
Jason Momoa, yeah.
Everyone was backing up. It was backing up the claims. It's Jason Momoa is Jason Momoa, and Ray Fisher is Ray Fisher. Like, Ray Fisher is not gonna. I mean, the Cyborg movie I thought was a bad idea when they announced it.
Yeah.
And
I forgot that they announced it.
yeah, like I just thought.
Well, I think it was mostly a Flash and Cyborg movie was the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But now here we are, where Warner is trying. Well, we still have a little bit of time left. The other big controversy with this movie was Warner Brothers' decision to move to HBO Max, as well as theaters for 2021 theatrical releases. Now, we don't have a ton of time to talk about it. And honestly, this is such a complicated issue. Probably deserves its own episode. But
Definitely.
Wink, wink.
but with this movie, do you think putting it on streaming was the right move? Or should they have waited till theaters were fully open to try and get that box office revenue? Or do you think trying to use this movie to build Max was the right idea?
I think it was the right idea using Max after watching the movie. Before the movie, I probably told you, hey, you probably should have waited.
Now, I watched the movie on Max. Did you guys also watch the movie on Max?
Yeah, I'm in LA. There's not. If I want to drive 8 hours, then maybe I could see it in the theater. But that's like the thing is that it's gotten so much flack. But the fact is, it solves the catch-22 from Tenet of.
Oh, you're sending people into theaters to get sick.
Yeah, the thing is that with Tenet, there's nothing playing in theaters, so they can't stay open and make money. But also, with distancing rules, with places that don't have theaters open, the limited capacity, limiting revenue, it can't do only theaters or it's not going to make its money back.
Theaters will die if you keep waiting until it's safe to reopen fully. They will die.
And the fact that the other problem you run into is you can't keep pushing everything fully back or you're going to run into the things you're making now, and then you lead to a production shutdown, which obviously creates even more economic issues. I mean,
Well, I think even the new Bond movie just got pushed back again till next fall. For Oscars.
Many Saints of Newark just got pushed today, too. The Sopranos movie is now going to be in September, which is probably an Oscar push. But still, stuff is still getting delayed, and we can't have that.
Right, and I think with some of those it makes sense, but the fact that they're releasing some of the blockbusters on both is big because again, they're going to run into their own blockbusters, and they're going to create conflict within their own schedule slate. So doing the half and half is a way to kind of get us moving back, because obviously there's still going to be restrictions with the current state of cases and things, but you have to have a plan, and despite all the flack they got, this shows an actual plan besides just, well, we're going to delay it 4 or 5 months, and if things still aren't fully open, we're going to push it back another 4 or 5 months, which is what everybody else's plan has been. But the 50-50 split is better than just putting it on streaming because it helps theaters, but it's also better than continuing to push.
A large number of theaters are still not open in this country.
Yeah.
A very large amount. And people have talked about, like the studies have shown, I think Cartoon Brew had a study that said in the next 6 months, 80% of people say they're not going to go to movie theaters. But yet people seem to want people to wait. It's like, if you want theaters to survive, they need content. It's people on the internet that really want and hate HBO Max decision are the kind of people that are going to show up to a closed down movie theater and go to the owner and be like, don't worry, I boycotted HBO Max for you, so that way they could wait. And too late, theater shut down, because they will shut down if you don't release stuff. And that's where we're at. Like, we're at the verge of losing the movie theater industry as a whole forever, permanently, and it's not HBO Max's fault.
Or losing it permanently, or getting to the point where they have to sell, and then now that restrictions were struck down a year ago, that the mega companies like Disney can buy the theaters, so they can wait for them to completely fill and then buy them up and then just show Disney movies, which we also don't want. So if you want them to remain as separate entities, as movie theaters, they have to have something to show, and you're starting to get that with some of the Oscar stuff is finally coming out in limited release, and then with the HBO Max plan, that can help.
And it's not like HBO Max plans to do this for the long run. According to Warner Brothers, it's just for 2021. And the movies are only going to be on Max for a month. Wonder Woman is leaving HBO Max in a couple days.
That's very smart.
It's super smart because for a lot of people in these markets, things aren't open, or they're about to reopen, like Minnesota, where I live, is just about to reopen theaters, or actually I think they just have. But these people have been waiting. They have stuff to see. They need content to watch. Wonder Woman's out. Here we go. It's just, there's no right answer. There is no right answer.
The best of a bad situation is to kind of do that, the half and half.
And in terms of Wonder Woman, I think it would have been a box office disappointment had it released in a non-COVID.
It would have had a good opening weekend, but it would have dropped off after that.
It is currently at $133 million global box office, which is probably what it would have gotten in one weekend in the States had it opened in full release in a non-pandemic year. It would have dropped off monsterly, though. I mean, like Variety, The Guardian, some publications seem to like the movie. I haven't heard a single fan that's been happy with this movie. And it's not like they're like, oh, it was not what I wanted, but I still had a good time. No, everyone's in agreement. It is horrible. It is awful.
It's very rare to see almost no one defending something, too. And you saw, there was more conflict about the quality of stuff like Batman v Superman and Justice League than there is this. Everybody's pretty much in agreement that this is terrible. But those had big drop-offs, too, in the box office. So this would have, I would think, certainly have seen that, if not more significant.
And we just have to wait and see. I mean, I think in 5 years, people are going to talk about this movie as one of the worst superhero movies of all time. Like, it will not survive the history test.
No. And again, I can't believe I've seen something again at this level. I hoped and prayed it never would, but the comparison I think of every time I think of this movie is the Catwoman from 2002, was it? 2004?
The one with Halle Berry?
Yeah. That's what I think of instantly. Like, that's what it's comparable to, really.
And don't get me wrong. I want to like this movie. It's not like I came in this movie going, Wonder Woman, about to hate it. I wanted to like it. I wanted to have a good time. I like the character. I love the
want to like
DC
every
comics.
movie I go in to watch.
Yeah.
I'm upset that this is bad. I'm upset that this is terrible. I still had a great time. Like, if you haven't seen it, give it a watch. You will be entertained.
A drink or 2 or 5.
Yeah, just
maybe
have
something
alcohol on
stronger.
hand. Get some tequila shots going. Every time some guy hits on Wonder Woman, take a shot.
I cannot wait for a drinking game on this movie. Every time someone says the word wish, make a drink. Or take a drink. I should say.
Every time
you have to make a drink every time they say it because you'll be drinking that much.
Yeah. Can't do shots. You'll die.
It's very unfortunate that these blockbusters are getting so few and far between of like the great blockbusters. Like even like 5 years ago, like 2015 had some amazing blockbusters, but like recently they're getting less and less, and what we're getting is super derivative.
I'm kind of surprised that it seems like Warner Brothers is the only one that wants to release any movies at all. Because I mean, they released this and Tenet.
Because they know what's up. Disney doesn't care.
Warner has generally been in good support of both theaters and like physical media, things like that. So they're a bit more active. Disney obviously seems to be turning to Plus only,
which we'll get to in a future episode. We do plan on discussing Disney's future plans and just how absolutely insane they are, which I'm sure will have people angry at us just as...
Careful that the mouse will come down on you and threaten your family.
I'm not worried about the mouse. I'm worried about the mouse's fans more so. The cult of the mouse. I don't even care I said that. Don't at me. You people know who you are.
Yeah.
We're not afraid of you.
How dare they take Spider-Man from me?
How dare they? How dare Sony stop them from having a complete monopoly on the movie industry and completely taking over everything?
I, for one, am very excited to see what our Lord or our dictator, the mouse, has in store for us.
Secretary of Defense Goofy. Anyway, we're about out of time. So thank you for listening to us ramble about Wonder Woman 1984 and other stuff. This is our first episode, so we hope to do more. Hope it wasn't as cringy as it probably was. But with that,
and if you like it, come back for more when we release more.
Yeah, with
hopefully
that
soon.
Oh, I'm down for doing more of this.
This was fun.
There is so much stupid stuff in media.
And we're just stupid enough to talk about it.
And so with that, for Justin Neitzel and Alex Ovadal, I'm David Yanish. This has been the first episode of Idiot Plot. Thanks for listening, and we hope you join us next time.